Yeah, despite the political rhetoric of many politicians all over the world that they're going to implement business practices in the government, what's the purpose of a business? Maximize return on investment, drive the competition out, and maintain as much market share as you can. I don't see that as a prime purpose of government. Government is there to protect the collective interests of the people and the long-term viability of the state as a political entity and a piece of nature. That's a whole different mission. So therefore, it isn't only about return on investment. Of course, costs matter, and return on investment should be one of the criteria for good governance. But what about preserving the long term? What about sustainability, protecting the commons, keeping the air clean enough that we don't cause health problems, not having the climate so violently change that it's dangerous? That's a role of government. And what about the fact that there are people who are richer and poorer? There are people who've done a lot to create the problem and others who are just the victim. You can't just assume they're all in the same boat. You have to have a differential view depending upon people's status. So equity is an important component. So it's really all three. It's about collective protection and the environment and sustainability on the one hand. It's about maintaining a cost-effective and economically viable society, but it's also about equity. And it's always a trade-off. It is not a business. And the business is going to ignore the sustainability and the equity component and focus only on return. That's an inappropriate role for government. That's what businesses are for, and they're very capable of defending their end. What you need government for is to protect the people less capable of defending their end, who are much more likely to be victims out of either poverty, lack of education, or lack of empowerment. So government has the job of finding the balance across all of them. And in the sustainability agenda for climate change, it's exactly the same thing. If you impose increased energy prices, it's going to hit the poor more than it's going to hit the rich in terms of percentage of their income. But we can't hold the sustainability agenda hostage to the fact that it'll be a little harder for the poor to pay than for the rich, because you don't subsidize poverty with artificially low prices of things like gasoline. Subsidize it with the real stuff, money. So if you're going to sit there and say we're going to reduce the footprint of the state and eventually the world on the environment, and we have to have the costs of doing business reflect everything, including the damages, that's going to make the prices go up. You can return some revenue back to poor people, but not necessarily in a payment of cash. How about a $5,000 voucher to buy a very efficient, good mileage car? So let them get a fuel-efficient car. So the amount of extra money it's going to cost them in gasoline may be even less than the benefit of this voucher, and it'll help the auto industry because they'll be able to have a customer who couldn't afford it before. We need to find creative solutions like that deal both with the imperative of protecting the sustainability of our environment and at the same time deal in fairness with the differential impact, not just of climate on people, but also of climate policy on people. It takes two acts of good governance. One, protect the commons. Two, do it fairly with side payments and other ways to bring everybody under the tent.